The story of Stephen Avery has captivated the attention of millions, sparking a divisive debate over his guilt or innocence. The internationally acclaimed true crime documentary, Making a Murderer, delves into the case, following Avery's journey from wrongful conviction to being charged with murder. This gripping documentary has left a lasting impact, reminding us all that nightmares can become a harsh reality. Teresa Halbach, a freelance photographer for Auto Trader magazine, unknowingly stepped into this dark tale on October 31, 2005, when she received a call to photograph Avery's auto salvage. Sadly, she was never seen again. The search for Teresa began on November 3, 2005, and her Toyota RAV4 SUV was discovered partially hidden in Avery's salvage yard 2 days later. Investigators found blood in the vehicle, as well as charred bone fragments and teeth in a burn pit on the property. Stephen Avery, the owner of the property, was found to have her car keys. Teresa, born on March 22, 1980, was raised on a dairy farm by her parents Richard and Karen, alongside her 4 siblings. Tragically, her father passed away when she was 8 years old, and her mother eventually remarried. Teresa had a passion for the outdoors and dreamed of becoming a photojournalist for National Geographic. Known for her warm and welcoming nature, she made everyone feel at ease. She excelled in her studies and graduated with honors in photography from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. Teresa continued to pursue her passion by working with Pierce Photography, eventually establishing her own business named Photography by Teresa, operating out of the Pierce studio. She extensively traveled and supplemented her income with freelance work for Auto Trader magazine, capturing images of vehicles up for sale. Unfortunately, it was this very job that led to her premature passing. All evidence pointed towards one individual, Stephen Avery. Avery had reached out to Teresa to schedule a photo shoot for his sister's minivan. According to reports, she was last seen at 2:30 p.m. that day. This was later corroborated by Stephen's nephew, Bobby, who informed authorities that he witnessed the vehicle entering the salvage yard. Initially, Avery faced charges for a weapons violation due to being a convicted felon. On November 11, 2005, he was formally accused of Teresa's murder, along with charges of kidnapping, sexual assault, and mutilation of a corpse. The blood discovered in the SUV was a positive match for Avery's DNA. Teresa's set of car keys was found in Avery's possession. Throughout the ordeal, Avery maintained his innocence, claiming that law enforcement was trying to frame him. At the time, he was embroiled in a legal battle with Manitowoc County for $36 million. Stephen Avery, born on July 9, 1962, was a native of Manitowoc County, raised in Wisconsin alongside his siblings, Chuck and Earl, and sister Barbara, by parents Dolores and Alan. He dropped out of high school, with reports indicating an IQ of 70. Stephen had a history with the law. In 1981, he spent 10 months in jail following a bar burglary. A year later, he pleaded guilty to animal cruelty after setting his pet cat on fire. For this offense, he served an additional 9 months. In 1985, he menaced his cousin, Sharon Morris, by running her off the road and brandishing a firearm. He later claimed he wanted her to cease spreading rumors. Sharon had filed a report alleging that he had exposed himself multiple times and was lurking in her front yard. Despite receiving a 6-year sentence for his actions, he was granted bail and released. However, a case of mistaken identity resulted in him being wrongly imprisoned for almost 2 decades. Penny Bjornsten recounted an incident where she was attacked and assaulted while walking along a beach near Two Rivers on July 29, 1985. Law enforcement officers noted that the description she provided bore a striking resemblance to Avery. Subsequently, she identified him from a photo during a police interview and later picked him out from a lineup of suspects. Avery was apprehended and charged in connection with the assault on Bjornsten. A forensic expert appointed by the state asserted that a hair discovered on Avery's shirt matched that of the victim. Despite 16 witness testimonies and a time-stamped receipt confirming his whereabouts at the time of the attack, Avery was convicted of rape and attempted murder in December 1985 and sentenced to 32 years in prison. Throughout the years, Avery maintained his innocence and pursued appeals in 1987 and 1996, both of which were rejected by the higher court. In 2001, Stephen reached out to the Wisconsin Innocence Project, leading to his exoneration in 2002 after DNA evidence proved his innocence. It was later revealed that Gregory Allen, another individual, had committed the crime and had confessed to it in 1995. Allegations were made that Sheriff Deputy Thomas Kokurek had dismissed the possibility of Allen's involvement, stating, "We already have the right guy. Don't concern yourself with it." Allen and Stephen shared a resemblance, and Allen had previously committed a similar crime in the same area where Bjornston was attacked. Despite being under police surveillance, Allen was not considered a suspect and was not included in the lineup. After spending 18 years behind bars, Stephen was released on September 11, 2003. He subsequently filed a civil lawsuit against former Sheriff Thomas Kokurek and former District Attorney Denny Vogel, seeking $36 million in damages. However, his freedom was short-lived as Teresa was reported missing, prompting searches in the salvage yard where she was last seen, as confirmed by Stephen's nephew, Bobby Dassey. Stephen asserted that he had a conversation with Teresa when she visited to capture the photographs, and then she departed. In addition to the bone fragments, SUV, car keys, and blood discovered in the vehicle, a bullet containing Teresa's DNA was found in the garage. While Stephen was imprisoned for Teresa's murder, his legal case was resolved in February 2006, resulting in a meager payment of $400,000. During his time in jail, Stephen's younger nephew, Brendan Dassey, was also interrogated regarding the murder. Brendan, who was 16 years old at the time of the crime, was questioned by the police without the presence of a parent or lawyer. Brendan confessed to the investigators that he and Stephen had assaulted Teresa before killing her, and then they attempted to destroy evidence by burning her body. Subsequently, Brendan recanted his statement, claiming that he had been coerced by the detectives. Brendan faced charges as an accessory to the murder in March 2006. Despite the absence of physical evidence linking him to the crime scene, he was convicted in March 2007 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Later that same year, Brendan was once again found guilty and given a life sentence with the potential for parole in 2048. However, the murder case does not have a straightforward resolution. The conviction sparked controversy and gained significant attention. Stephen became the first individual among the Innocence Project's 174 exonerated convicts to be charged with a violent crime after his release. This caught the interest of aspiring filmmakers, Laura Ricciardi and Moira Demos, who produced the documentary series Making a Murderer. The series, which took a decade to research and create, delves into the timeline of Stephen Avery's case, starting from his wrongful conviction in 1985, his subsequent exoneration, his civil lawsuit against Manitowoc County, and the subsequent arrest of both Stephen and Brendan in connection with Teresa Halbach's murder. The response to the case of Teresa has been met with both praise and criticism from various parties, including critics and those directly involved. The international attention it garnered has led to a split in public opinion. Despite a petition with over 128,000 signatures being sent to the White House seeking pardon for Stephen and Brendan, it ultimately did not have any impact. The White House clarified that since the convictions were made in a state court, the president lacked the authority to pardon either defendant. There are staunch supporters of Stephen and Brendan's innocence, such as his immediate family who continue to stand by him and hope for the real killer of Teresa to be brought to justice. Sandy Greenman, Stephen's ex-fiancée, has been a vocal advocate for him, even creating a Facebook page to raise awareness about the case. She has refuted claims of Stephen's violent nature, stating that such allegations are unfounded. Notably, Kim Kardashian has also shown support for a fair justice system, though her efforts have not yielded any results so far. On the other hand, there are those like Jody Stachowski, another ex-fiancée, who believes Stephen belongs behind bars. Jody has changed her stance from initially supporting his innocence to later claiming he threatened her and her family. The documentary has sparked a debate on the coverage of the case, with supporters of Stephen and Brendan feeling that crucial trial points were emphasized. Dean Strang, one of Stephen's attorneys, acknowledged that the documentary provided enough information for the public to form their own judgments. However, he disagreed with the notion that the series was biased. On the other hand, the relatives of Teresa expressed their sadness regarding the show. The Halbachs claimed that the show aimed to entertain and profit from their tragic loss. Both Teresa's aunt and cousin-in-law stated that the documentary presented a one-sided perspective. Former Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratz alleged that he was not given an opportunity to present his side of the story. The filmmakers, however, denied this and asserted that he had refused to participate in an interview. In an interview with People magazine, Kratz claimed that the documentary omitted crucial evidence, such as Stephen using a fake name when contacting Teresa, Stephen's DNA being found on the SUV's hood latch, and a ballistics report confirming that the bullet discovered in the garage was fired from Stephen's rifle. Kratz further alleged that Teresa had previously visited the Avery residence and felt scared of Stephen when he answered the door wearing only a towel. In response to criticism from Kratz and other officials, the filmmakers stated that they had given prosecutors the opportunity to address any questions. They believed that the documentary provided a fair representation of the case and focused on the most significant evidence presented during the trial. The documentary successfully challenged the narrative of Stephen and Brendan's case by exposing allegations of police and prosecutorial misconduct, evidence tampering, and witness coercion. From the beginning, Stephen accused the police of attempting to frame him in order to avoid paying the $36 million lawsuit he had filed. Stephen believed that his lawsuit would be undermined if he were convicted of another violent crime. To prevent any conflict of interest, Manitowoc County entrusted the handling of the case to neighboring Calumet County. Part of the agreement, however, stipulated that Calumet would have access to various resources, including personnel from Manitowoc. It was a Manitowoc sheriff's deputy who discovered the key in Stephen's room after conducting numerous searches of the property. Another accusation arose concerning the blood evidence found in the car. Stephen and his legal team firmly believed that it was blood taken from his previous conviction. The defense's claims lent credibility to this theory. According to the Avery defense team, the vial containing Stephen's blood had been tampered with, evident from a puncture mark on the stopper. The prosecution, however, refuted this assertion by testing the blood for a preservative not typically found in fresh human blood, and the results were negative. To counter this, Avery's defense team called upon an expert witness who argued that the negative result could not definitively prove the absence of the preservative or the inconclusiveness of the testing technology itself. The documentary shed light on the manner in which Brendan Dassey was interrogated. At the time of the interrogation, Dassey was a mere 16 years old. What raised eyebrows was the fact that he was interviewed without the presence of a lawyer or parent. While it is known that both he and his mother consented to the interrogation, many were intrigued by the fact that Brendan had an IQ of 73, classifying him as intellectually challenged. Critics argue that his cognitive limitations made him susceptible to suggestion, especially considering that the Reed technique of interrogation was employed. The Reed technique has faced criticism for eliciting false confessions, particularly from juveniles and individuals with mental impairments. This technique aims to establish rapport with the suspect, gradually leading them to confess by creating a sense of familiarity with the interrogators. The interrogator then asserts that the evidence unequivocally points to the suspect's guilt. Dassey initially appeared to agree with the interrogators during the interviews, but later retracted his confession. He accused his initial legal team of colluding with the prosecution to coerce a confession out of him. Allegations of coercion have also been made in relation to his confession. Despite multiple appeals, both Stephen and Brendan have been repeatedly denied, and are still incarcerated. The defense teams for both individuals have exhausted all avenues in their attempts to secure new trials. In the wake of the Making a Murderer documentary and the ensuing public outcry over Stephen and Brendan's innocence, significant changes have taken place within their legal representation. Professors Laura Nereder and Stephen Drizin from the Northwestern University Center on Wrongful Convictions of Youth are now advocating for Brendan. Despite facing numerous obstacles, they remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice. On the other hand, Kathleen Zellner's involvement in Stephen's case has injected new life into the proceedings and dealt a blow to the prosecution's arguments. Former attorneys Dean Strang and Jerry Buting have capitalized on their newfound fame by embarking on a tour to raise awareness about Stephen Avery's case. Zellner, a renowned trial lawyer with a track record of overturning wrongful convictions, has meticulously analyzed the evidence to uncover crucial information that supports her client's innocence. Notably, she recently served as a consultant for Johnny Depp's defense team. Zellner wasted no time in getting to work on Stephen's case and firmly believes in his innocence. She quickly dispelled the alleged confession of Joseph Evans Jr., labeling it as a mere publicity stunt. Evans had previously claimed to have heard Stephen confess to the murder in a 9-page letter sent to the media. This time, however, it appears that he desired a portion of the reward money to improve his living conditions in prison. Unfortunately for him, his claim is not receiving the support he had anticipated. In August 2016, Zellner submitted a motion requesting new scientific testing to be conducted. Zellner was willing to cover the costs of extensive testing, as she intended to utilize this evidence to demonstrate that Stephen had been framed. The theory proposed was that 3 separate burn pits contained evidence of human remains being incinerated. Of particular significance was the discovery of a human pelvic bone fragment, which had been given to the Hallbacks as part of Teresa's remains. Zellner argues that this action proves that Teresa's remains were planted in Stephen's burn pit. However, the defense was not given the opportunity to examine these bones as they were not disclosed to them. Zellner claims that this constitutes a Brady violation, meaning that evidence which could have potentially exonerated Stephen was not disclosed properly. Crucial evidence in the criminal case remained just out of their reach. Nevertheless, Zellner persisted in her pursuit of justice. She approached the case from a new angle, one that could potentially point to a different suspect. Since she was unable to test the bone fragments, Zellner opted to conduct forensic testing on the Dassey family computer. What she discovered was incriminating. Pornographic images depicting women in various stages of torture, violent images, and videos portraying women as victims. Allegedly, all of these images were accessed when Bobby Dassey was at home. Additionally, Zellner highlighted that Barbara, Bobby Brendan's mother, along with Stephen's sister and her husband, were attempting to dispose of evidence that could implicate Bobby. The forensic team managed to download 2,449 pages of data from the computer onto a CD-ROM, which was presented as part of the motion for a retrial. This collection contained all the searches, videos, and photos accessed by Bobby. As Brendan's older brother and Stephen's nephew, he played a crucial role as the main witness for the prosecution during Stephen's trial. According to his account, he claimed to have last seen Teresa heading towards his uncle's house, and upon returning from his hunting trip that afternoon, he did not see her or her car again. Additionally, his half-brother Braden Dassey has made allegations of his own, stating that he believes his uncle is innocent. Braden has also claimed that his stepmother, Barbara, and Stephen's brother-in-law, Scott, deleted all pornographic material from the computer. It is alleged that Barbara has even filed a harassment suit against Braden after a conversation they had about tracing deleted files, possibly to ensure his silence. However, the most damaging evidence against Bobby could be the testimony of an eyewitness who claims to have seen him with an older man pushing Teresa's SUV back into the salvage yard. Thomas Sawinski, in a sworn affidavit, stated that he encountered Bobby and the other man while delivering newspapers. When he passed them again, Bobby allegedly stepped in front of his car to stop him. Thomas managed to avoid him and continued on his route, but he noticed Bobby's displeased expression. Realizing the significance of the discovery of the SUV, Thomas contacted the police and shared all the details of what he had witnessed that morning. Surprisingly, their response was, "We already know who did it." Thomas provided his information, but never received any further communication from them. This revelation presents a contradiction to the prosecution's key witness, which Attorney Zellner finds significant. She is confident that if proven true, Bobby's testimony would be proven false. Zellner firmly believes that the rejection of crucial evidence in Stephen's favor denied him a fair opportunity to prove his innocence many years ago. The recently submitted motion is currently under review by the appeals court, awaiting a verdict or ruling. As of November 2022, Stephen Avery steadfastly asserts his innocence. Kathleen Zellner, in her own statement, advocates for those who have been wrongly convicted and warns, "If you deceive me, I will uncover the truth." The initial indication that Stephanie Isaacon had been killed was the discovery of her school books. Her father recognized them while looking for her close to the desert area, just a short distance from their house. A friend of his, Gary Braley, was the one who noticed the books. "Do those belong to her?" Braley inquired. "They did," John Isaacson responded. It was the 1st of June, 1989, and his 14-year-old daughter had not returned home from school. Upon contacting El Dorado High School, Isaacson found out that she had never arrived for classes. This is the account of Stephanie Isaacson, a 14-year-old girl who was tragically murdered in Las Vegas in 1989. The case had gone cold until advancements in technology allowed for the testing of the suspect's DNA, which was only a minuscule amount equivalent to 15 human cells. Stephanie shared a close bond with her father, and they enjoyed various activities together such as horseback riding, motorcycling, camping, hunting, boating, and even scuba diving certification at Lake Mead. Following her parents' divorce, Stephanie chose to live with her father, while her younger sister resided with their mother, Sharon Gares. On the morning of June 1st, 1989, Stephanie left her father's apartment at approximately 6:30 a.m. Her father, who worked night shifts at Nellis Air Force Base, did not see her before she left. Her absence was noticed by her choir teacher at school, as Stephanie would typically spend her lunch hour with her friends, who referred to themselves as the little team. The teacher found it unusual for Stephanie to miss school. However, the school did not inform Isaacson about her absence. It was only when his girlfriend informed him that Stephanie had not returned home that he filed a police report. Isaacson and his friends then went to the stables at Nellis, where they kept their horses, and searched the nearby desert area that Stephanie sometimes used as a shortcut to school. They discovered Stephanie's belongings, prompting Isaacson to contact the police once again. A thorough search involving helicopters and ground teams was conducted. Eventually, a police dog found Stephanie's body under a discarded orange carpet approximately 25 yards away. Her brown hair was disheveled and her clothes were in disarray. Stephanie appeared to be around 5 feet 6 inches tall, and her body had been mutilated. No other evidence, including her shoes, was found at the scene. Following Stephanie's tragic death, her choir friends remained composed, but struggled to cope with the loss. The question lingered: who was responsible for Stephanie's tragic fate? Speculations arose, wondering if the culprit was someone connected to her school. A close friend reminisced about Stephanie, expressing the sorrow of what she could have become. The investigation commenced, aiming to uncover the truth. Authorities diligently sought answers, exploring the possibility of Stephanie encountering an individual with ill intentions on her way to school. Did this person meticulously plan their actions or seize an opportunity? These were the inquiries that demanded resolution. A detective suggested that the killer may have ambushed Stephanie, leaving behind a trail of her belongings. The officers traced the path, envisioning her being dragged into the foliage where her lifeless body was discovered. Initially, leads were scarce, with conflicting reports from neighbors about a suspicious vehicle in the vicinity. Some mentioned the presence of vagrants in the undeveloped area near Stewart. Over the years, investigators pursued potential suspects in various states, exhausting all available leads. Despite their efforts, Stephanie's murderer remained elusive. When the case reached a standstill, authorities released a personality profile of the killer, compiled by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The profile indicated that the perpetrator was likely in his early 20s, residing or working near the crime scene. It suggested a possible change in behavior following the crime, portraying the individual as a loner with limited social skills and intelligence. Shortly before the murder occurred, he may have encountered a disagreement with a woman in his life. However, the detectives did not immediately benefit from creating a profile of the killer's personality. They were still unable to make an arrest or identify a main suspect. The case remained unsolved for the next 32 years. In 2021, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department collaborated with Othram to re-evaluate DNA evidence from the crime scene, hoping that advanced DNA testing could provide new leads in the investigation. The case gained momentum when local entrepreneur and philanthropist Justin Wu donated $5,000 to Othram Lab in Texas. With a desire to assist the community, Justin Wu requested the lab to specifically analyze a cold case from the Metropolitan Police Department. The department then began discussing which case to choose for the examination. Cold case investigator Dan Long mentioned that his partner, Terry Miller, was the one who revisited Stephanie's file. Over the course of 3 years, Miller established a connection with Stephanie's family and provided them with updates every 6 months. Stephanie's age and the brutality of the crime stood out to those who investigated the case. Efforts to match the DNA found on Stephanie's shirt proved unsuccessful. Nevertheless, Miller persisted in urging the lab to continue their work. In January, the police sent the lab the remaining 12/10ths of a nanogram of DNA, which is equivalent to 15 human cells. To put it into perspective, a typical consumer genetic test for ancestral tracking requires at least 750 nanograms of DNA. The officers were reaching a critical point, and this was their final opportunity. On July 21st, the department announced a successful match, setting a world record for solving a case with the smallest amount of DNA. Using this small but usable sample, Othram Lab was able to construct the genetic profile of the suspect. Genealogists then traced the branches of the suspect's family tree. Investigators delved into the information and narrowed down the list to 2 potential suspects. Eventually, they focused on a prime suspect, Darren Roy Marchand, who was charged with the strangling of a 25-year-old woman in 1986. Marchand's inclusion on their list was solely due to the advancements in this new technology, which has proven to be highly effective in solving cold cases. In March 1986, when Marchand was just 20 years old, he was charged with the murder of Nanette Vanderberg, who was found unclothed in her East Tropicana Avenue apartment bathtub. The police discovered Marchand's fingerprints near the body. However, after 2 days of testimony, the case was dismissed later that year when the judge deemed the fingerprint evidence insufficient to proceed. Subsequently, the police compared the DNA from Vanderberg's case with that found in Isaacson's case, and it was a match. Unfortunately, there will never be an arrest as Marchand died by suicide in 1995 at the age of 29. When the DNA collected at the time of his suicide was tested, it matched the semen found on Stephanie's shirt. This revelation brought a mix of emotions for Stephanie's family, who had almost lost hope of ever finding resolution in the case. Stephanie's father expressed his frustration during a phone interview, stating, "That son of a bitch got me twice. Once when he took my daughter's life, and the other one when I didn't get the opportunity to look him in the eye." While Stephanie's mother acknowledged that it wasn't true justice, she hoped that the family would find some closure in finally discovering the perpetrator. Presently, investigators are delving into the reasons behind Marchand's suicide and whether he had other victims. Detectives speculate that his suicide may have been a result of his actions, but at this point even the officers themselves are uncertain.